Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I interview business leaders who are committed to their own growth and the development of everyone on their team. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and today I have such a treat for you. This is someone that will tell you a story about during our conversation today, because we've had more than one conversation about this particular interview. And my guest's name is Ron Reich. Ron, welcome to my show.
Meredith, thank you. Truly, it is really, really good to be here. It's always good to talk with you. It's always good to see you.
Well, I feel the same way about you. And I want to give a shout out to the person who was responsible for us meeting, and that was Elaine Williams. So Elaine, thank you so much. Ron is such a joy to know. And I can hardly wait for the things we're going to cover in our conversation today. Ron, let people know a little bit about who you are before we get started. Ron has 30 years of training and development and consulting experience. His background is broad-based. He's worked for some major organizations such as Toshiba, the Chubb Corporation, and Organon Pharmaceuticals. The majority of his work through these years has focused on leadership and management development, along with corporate training and organizational development. Ron, as you will see, is passionate about the work he does, and he makes his workshops as interactive as possible. His only request for participants is to arrive early and have some fun along the way. For my listeners, I know you're going to have fun listening to our conversation, and you're going to get some really valuable takeaways along the way. So, Ron, one of the things I wanted to kick off with your broad experience of working with so many leaders for so many years, there's a parallel, I think, between what you do in your workshops and what leaders do with their teams. And in particular, I want to start with this idea that you've articulated so well around setting expectations. How do you kick off your workshops so that it is really a great experience for the participants? And I want my listeners to be thinking about their roles as leaders, and you can draw this out directly if you want to, how they can set those expectations up front to ensure they get the very best from their team members.
Yeah, Meredith, it's interesting because I'm going to go back to before we even begin a workshop. And we were talking a little bit before the show about some of my bosses at Toshiba, and one of them that I didn't mention his name to you, whatever, Tony Codiani. Tony from Toshiba taught me so many years ago, Ron, anytime you are doing a workshop, you're doing a class, I expect you to be in the room, ready to go 45 minutes beforehand. And when I say ready to go, I mean you are prepared, you are ready to talk to participants as they come in, you start building rapport with them, you chat with them. You are not preparing or anything else. And I learned so much from that because my direct experience has been, it allows me, indeed, just to start talking with people a little bit. What's your background? Where are you from? And, what's your family like? Or what are your passions? Whatever it might be, letting people know right away, I'm human. I hope they think I'm a nice guy. I like to think so. And this is going to be a fun experience. And so, we're getting off to a good start like that. And when I begin the workshops, what I always like to do is have everybody interact with each other a lot, for even like the first 20 minutes, maybe even the first half hour. And I ask at the end of the icebreaker, folks, how is this going to help us to work together? Inevitably, wow, we're not strangers any longer. I feel like, I have some colleagues now, not just people in the class. And this might be most important, although I'm not going to attach a priority to, is that I realize with the challenges, I'm not alone. I'm not alone with these challenges. I thought I was just in a silo with what I need to address here. And my point simply is here, Meredith, now that we have established a relationship or there, and again, the classic term, the ice is broken. We talk a little bit more about, just this is what is going on here from a lunch perspective and, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Folks, as far as the atmosphere we want to create, we want to have an environment where everybody can concentrate, learn, get as much out of the session as possible. Can we all agree, please, to the following? And here we go: expectations. And I just walked them through the expectations very simply. Please, folks, actively participate. I meant what I said in the beginning. The more we talk to each other, the better off we'll be. Please, everybody, talk to your colleagues. When we're having group discussions, I don't want to be the focal point. I want you to be the focal point. So please address each other. Include me. I'm not saying ignore me, include me. We need to have one conversation at a time. If Meredith has the floor and she's speaking, we honor her, we listen to her. If there are side conversations going on, politely and tactfully, folks, please, Meredith has the floor, one conversation at a time. Everybody also, I need your phones on vibrate, no texting, no emailing while we're in here. It distracts me and it distracts your colleagues. And here again, Meredith, being human. And it's what I say to them every single time, verbatim. Folks, I am not trying to be a jerk. I am not trying to be a control freak here. I understand fully that business goes on when you are in a training session. If something comes up for you and you need to take care of it, by all means, take care of it. I'm totally comfortable with that. Please step out of the room so you don't distract the rest of us. Can we all agree to that? And everybody agrees, and there you go. And now, if anybody's texting or anybody, it's just again politely and nicely. Meredith, please, you agreed you wouldn't text. And it's over all the years, I think maybe 3 times or so, I have needed to address people and just say, hey, folks, please, or not folks, an individual or a couple of individuals, and it makes all the difference. They've agreed to it, so it's like I don't feel bad again. Well, and see, and again, key point though here is once I've set these expectations, then it's incumbent upon me to enforce them.
Hmm. Yes, and I think you had told me about a situation where there are a couple of people that were texting that you had to address. Talk about that story because I think, it's an important one, and I'll make the point I want to make after you share that.
Okay, sure, sure. Washington, D.C., I was doing a 3-day management course for the American Management Association. We had set the expectations. Day 1 and 2 went just fine. On the morning of day 3, 2 gentlemen who worked for the same company were texting right off the bat. As soon as we started, they were texting and just, emailing, whatever it was. So after about 20 minutes, I went over to them. I was like, gentlemen, the 2 of you have been texting all morning. You agreed not to. I need it to stop. One of them looked up at me. We are both listening. And I was like, I don't care whether you're listening or not. That's not the point. The point is, number one, you agreed you wouldn't text. Number two, the enforcement piece. If I allow you to text, that sends the message to everybody else in this room. It is acceptable, and it's not. They were furious, got up, left, and did not come back. And again, you and I talked about that, and I said, we know each other well enough, and although we've already talked about this, still, do you think that upset me?
No.
No, no, it didn't. And again, I deny this to no one, Meredith. I am very sensitive. I really, really am. Where I'm, oh, should I have said that to him, or gee, was that an appropriate comment to make? I mean, sometimes I can just get in my own head like that. That did not upset me at all because they knew the expectations. And I had said that you agreed to these, gentlemen. So it didn't upset me. I mean, you want to go, go. I am on completely solid ground here.
Yeah. And the people who were in attendance, I'm sure were watching and appreciated your enforcing the agreement. And, I want to make a distinction here, Ron, between expectations and agreements, because sometimes we set expectations, but if we don't have people agree to them, then it's more challenging to reinforce it because they could say, oh, I never agreed to that. So I think that piece of laying out the ground rules, how we're going to operate with each other, and then to have each person commit, yes, I am agreeing to that. Then if they violate any one of those, you have, as you said, the perfect right to go back and address it with them. Because here was the point I wanted to make. Everybody else is watching that leader's behavior, whether it's the instructor in front of the room or the leader in a team. If they've said, we're going to start meetings on time, and then you still wait 5 minutes for the laggards to come in or anything like that, people then see, oh, okay, that's the real standard. It's not what was stated. It's here's the behavior of what's really happening. And I think that sends a huge message for consistency.
And oh, Meredith, just spot on. This week, I was in Manhattan. I did an AMA class Monday and Tuesday. And I am a stickler. And I mean, and again, I'm not a control freak. That's not what I'm trying to say. Just saying to people, all right, let's take a break, everybody. We will reconvene at 10:45. At 10:45, we reconvened, no matter who's in the room. And equally as important here for me, though, is in addition, I also like to tell people, being human and just letting them know what's happening is, we're going to reconvene at 10:45, yes. At 10:40 or so, folks, just FYI, 5 minutes left. Folks, 2 minute warning. We're going to start in 2 minutes, just so they know. So it's not all of a sudden, stop, we're reconvening now. And it's like, well, I need to finish this.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations are there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just goes back to me, to being human, to being kind. And as human beings, we want to know what's expected of us and what's going to be happening.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. One of the other things I admire about your approach, Ron, is you also work hard to create psychological safety for people. This whole area of being vulnerable, and there's a powerful story that you had shared with me about the CEO. So talk a little bit about, because that's another key piece, I think, for leaders of organizations, of teams, to realize the tone they set for it being safe for people to be open and honest is critical for hearing the things they need to hear from people on their team, rather than having them withhold, or whether intentionally or subconsciously, because they don't feel safe. So talk about that whole area, please.
I'm going to back up again first.
Okay.
With the icebreaker that I like to do, everybody is standing up, they're talking about a passion that they have, the work that they do, and challenges they hope to address, and everything else. And they all say at the end of that, wow, I feel like, we're not strangers any longer. And, we know each other some. The research on this is clear as far as I'm concerned. I'm a voracious reader. And every book is saying the exact same thing. The better you know people, the more effectively you will work with them, both personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So now, and with that said, I'll get to the story, which for me is incredibly powerful. I was working with a leadership team down in Atlanta, a small technology company, and I was helping them to develop a mission statement, values, and things along those lines. Part of the session was going to be getting to know each other better. So I had told them up front, folks, I'm going to ask you to tell a story to your colleagues that helped to shape you into who you are today. It can be any example, any story, personal, professional, doesn't matter. And I had asked Nick, the CEO, if he would go first. Yeah, be glad to, Ron. We're meeting in his home. The entire leadership team is sitting around his dining room table, Said, Nick, it's story time. If you would start us off. Sure, I'll be glad to. Folks, when I was a little boy, I was incredibly ambitious. Incredibly. I didn't get one paper route, I got two. The reason I did that, folks, I wanted to save my money and I desperately wanted a VCR. I wanted to get that VCR. So I saved my money and I did it. I got my VCR. And you know what, folks? After I got the VCR, I had $65 left. $65. I went to my mom and dad. Mom, Dad, the carnival is in town and I have some money and I'd like to go by myself. Is that okay? Son, yes, yes. You've proven yourself to be trustworthy and reliable. You may go by yourself. I went. I got my wristband and I got the hot dog. And the team was sitting, all right, Nick, whatever. Where are you going with this? At that point in time, the tears started, slowly at first. I got the hot dog, and then I started to play the games. And I kept playing the games. And now he is openly crying, openly. It took a half hour. And after a half an hour, my $65 was gone. And the guy who took my money said I was the biggest sucker he had ever seen in his entire life. Nick took his hand, slammed it down on the table. Folks, I vowed from that day forward, nobody's ever going to call me a sucker again. And that's the reason I'm so tight with the money at this company. And everybody in the entire team was like, oh my, we didn't know that. And they were saying to him, Nick, we just thought you were a tightwad. We thought you were cheap. And he was like, no, it's because of this. I watch every penny because I don't want it to disappear. On us, I care. And completely different perspective now.
That is such a powerful story. And it just goes to show we can't judge a person or their behavior just by what we see in a single action or a series of actions or even a habit or a pattern, because we don't know what's behind it. That's so profound.
And interestingly, Meredith, you're reminding me of something too that I think is really important, because just like what you said, it's very, very it can be very detrimental to make judgments about people, even after observations at work. And where I'm going with this, again, being the voracious reader that I am, I read a book one time and the author talked about if you're having trouble with a colleague, if you're having trouble with a coworker, spend more time with them. Spend more time with them. Get to know them on a different level. Go to lunch. Take them to coffee. Ask them for advice about something. And at first, when I was reading that, I was like, that just makes no sense to me. And I kept thinking about it. I had a coworker at Organon at one point in time. She and I were oil and water. We were just oil and water. I didn't like her. I didn't trust her. She didn't like me. She didn't trust me. My thinking on this, okay, this is what I'll do. I will work with her and I will be professional with her. We'll do whatever we need to do together. And again, from a professional perspective, no more, no less. I don't want to spend any more time with her. One day, nobody else was around, and somehow, some way, we ended up going to lunch. We had such a nice lunch. I got to know her better. And I'm not gonna sit here and say to you, oh, we became good friends. No, we didn't, and we never will be, and that's fine. I got to know her on a different level, and just realizing was like, okay. She just has a much different professional background than I do, and personal background than I do. I'm more conservative than she is. She's just much more of a risk taker than I am. And I was like, okay, we can work together more effectively. And again, it sounds so counterintuitive. And the more I think about it, it's like, yeah, I like it.
That's such a great example because I think our nature is spend more time with those that are like us, that we really easily connect with, and avoid those, minimize our contact with
Yes.
them. And I think what you're really advocating here is so important because I think from a leadership point of view, or even as a parent, maybe we connect more effectively with some folks, our children or members of our team than others. And I think it's important to avoid any sense of favoritism, or spending more time with people that we just automatically enjoy more and recognize how important it is, as you said at the very beginning, to really get to know these people as individuals, know what matters to them. And that
Exactly.
requires investing time with those folks.
Exactly.
And and even don't tell me how you handle this in, say, a classroom. If you ever get questions about this with the leaders you're working with, if they say, well, I don't have that much time to spend getting to know people. We've got so much work to do
Hmm.
that how do you expect me to now do this other, relationship building part? What's your response to that?
You used the word investment a couple seconds ago, and for me, that's the key thing here. The leaders need to invest the time in getting to know people. And I ask people all the time, and again, I'm going to go back to the reading that I do. You want to get to know your people? How fair is that to say? And everybody says, "Yeah, I'd like to. I don't have the time. I don't have the time." Okay. What about scheduling time to just walk around, to just schedule time to walk the floor, to walk through the cubes, whatever it might be? Schedule it. I read that. I still remember so clearly. I was on a flight to Chicago and I was reading this. If you had, Daniel Goleman actually wrote it. And I was
Mm.
reading this, schedule it, make an appointment with yourself. And again, I say this to groups all the time. You know what I'm going to do Thursday from 3 to 3:30? What? I'm going to walk around. How do you know that? Because it's on my calendar. Because if you want to get to know people and it's hard for you to take the time, I think I'll walk around today and you don't schedule it. What will happen? I'll do it tomorrow.
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
and and Meredith, I'll tell you another quick story here because again, it's so significant for me. My wife's cousin is one of the top, top people at the FDA. Yeah, I mean, he has met with, he meets with the presidents all the time. And I mean, those are the circles in which he runs. I only met him, I don't know, maybe 2, 3 years ago, whatever it wasn't. He didn't know what I did for a living. So we're just chatting a little bit. And he said, Ron, you know what I really love to do at work? And this was all unsolicited. I was like, what's that, Gerald? He said, Ron, I love to walk around. And I was like, do you really? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, this is a story. This is a story coming. Keep going, Gerald. And he said, I love to walk around. And I was like, what? For what purpose? You wouldn't believe what I learned. I learn about people, what's going on with them. I learn about their projects, what's going well, where they're struggling, and they know they know I'm a guy. I'm not this, top person. And again, key point here too, Meredith, for me at least, he is so humble. He is so humble. You would never know he had that type. He was at that level. And to me, that's a big, big piece too.
Mhm. Well, I love that, walking around and learning. And I think one thing, if somebody is not used to doing that, it's probably a good idea to give your team a heads up that you're going to do it. Because if you start changing a behavior all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
yeah,
they might be, and you don't have that solid trust, I'll give that as a caveat, then
yes,
there's potential for them being suspicious, uneasy, on guard, and not being,
right.
welcoming of you
Absolutely,
doing this. So I think you feel that it's important to set the purpose of
absolutely.
doing this so that people expect it and aren't surprised by it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things too is, and I say this to people all the time, is you know what, folks? I went to that class, 2 weeks ago or this week, whatever it might be. God, I learned so much. One of the things I learned was that it's really, really important for me to be visible and to be more approachable. And I'm going to try to do that. This is how I'm going to do it. So when you see me walking around now, that's what I'm doing. And again, another key thing here, it must be sincere.
Hmm.
It's like, I'm going to walk around because the instructor said to do it. No, I'm going to walk around because, again, it helps me in so many ways. It creates psychological safety for everybody. Everybody wins here.
Mhm.
Everybody.
That's that's so good. There's another topic that I wanted us to talk about, and it's so relevant because of what happened to us last week. It's around the idea of letting go of control and how to respond when something happens that's unexpected. And just for my audience to know, last week Ron and I were recording a conversation that didn't turn out to be a conversation because we had some interference. His dog decided to visit his office and was barking. And then a few minutes later, I lost internet connection. So we had this conversation going that got interrupted. And what I noticed is we were both okay with it almost immediately. I mean, there was just because it was totally out of my control. On my end, I thought, well, I'll give him a call on the phone and let's get it rescheduled. And that's a learned response over time. Instead of cursing and feeling frustrated and why is this happening to me, that whole victim thing,
Right.
it's like taking ownership of what we do have control over. And so here we are with our conversation today with none of that happening. And so talk from your perspective, Ron, about this idea of control and how to let go when we don't have control.
I I'm gonna talk to a couple of points here. Number one, preparation for me is absolutely vital. Absolutely vital. I prepare meticulously for everything I do. I prepared for our conversation. I prepare meticulously for every single session that I do. And the reason I do that is because people deserve my best. People deserve my best. And if I'm not well prepared, that's not right. And my point is simply my level of preparation is completely in my control. That is completely
Mm.
in my control. The results of what happens, after a presentation, or how well does our conversation go, that is completely out of my control. And the phrase I like to use just very simply is, and I try to do this on a daily basis as best I can, Ron, stay out of the results business. Stay out of the results business. As long as I can answer the question for myself honestly, have I prepared fully for this session? Have I prepared fully for this conversation? And as we got started, Meredith, obviously you wouldn't know this. Just when you said, okay, we're gonna start recording now. Conscious thought to myself, this is out of my hands. I hope it goes well. I'm ready. And that's all I can do. And that makes my life so much easier. And again, interestingly, as long as you're okay with this, because I think it ties into some of the other things we've been talking about, is that as a leader, as a consultant, as a trainer, whatever, it is impossible for me to please everybody all the time. I can't do it. I can't do it. That's out of my control. All I can do, like I said, prepare well, present well, do whatever. The results will be what the results will be. And again, it goes back to the setting of expectations. Well, Ron, I don't like the fact that you only give us an hour for lunch. I'm just taking that out of the air, whatever it might be. It's like, well, I'm sorry. That's the way it's going to be. Well, we should take, we should skip lunch. I get it, which is, whatever it might be. I can't please everyone. And so going back to the expectations, boom, that helps. And then additionally for me, if that kind of situation occurs, I need to make a decision that's in the best interest of the group or that's in the best interest of the organization overall. The results will take care of themselves. Not everybody's going to be happy. And I need to accept that. I'm sensitive. Does that bother me? Yeah, it does. I deny that to no one, except I also realize I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. But thinking about situations that you've encountered, let's say where you've been able to remain calm, but someone else around you wasn't calm. And the contrast between those two, talk to how you have developed this ability to stay calm when unexpected situations occur instead of reacting with emotion or any negative response.
There's just real briefly. I'll go through this briefly. I'm not an expert on brain physiology at all. My understanding of the brain is when we hear information, when we're talking with someone, the information that we hear hits the limbic portion of the brain first. Limbic area of the brain has two major functions. One is the long-term memory, fine. More importantly, for what we're talking about, the emotional center is also housed in the limbic area of the brain. So the information goes through there in nanoseconds. It hits the cerebral portion of our brain, which is where we think. The key point, and I talk to people in my classes about this all the time, we feel before we think. We have to. Every human being feels before he or she thinks because the information we get runs through the emotional center before it reaches logic. That's the reason sometimes people will react so strongly to things. Stupid idea. You did what? What do you mean the flight's canceled? You can't do that to us. Emotion, emotion. What I like to recommend to people, and this has helped me on probably, I'm not kidding, thousands of occasions. When I'm emotional, I like to use or implement the acronym PRD. When I'm
Say that
emotional,
again.
PRD. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to pause. I'm going to reflect. And then I'm going to decide how to handle this. Pause and reflecting allows me to get into at least a little bit of the cerebral area of my brain. So my response has some logic attached to it. In situations where it's possible and appropriate, what I like to recommend to people too, pause, reflect, and rather than even postponing or talking about the situation, the conflict, the problem, whatever it might be, can we talk about this in an hour? Can we talk about this afternoon? I'll calm down. It gives you time to prepare. We all win. And like I said, that has helped me just over the years. I mean, I told you the story, and when we had our technical problems last time, I was stuck at Logan Airport many years ago. The weather, I was trying to get back to Newark. The weather was bad. It was foggy. It was rainy and just everything else. It was so long ago. President Clinton was in office at the time. He was in New York, so Air Force One was around, and the airspace was closed for a while. There were no rental cars available because I looked. The trains weren't running, and I'm sitting there reading a book, and this little college kid comes up to me. Can I ask you something? Sure. What is it? Do you travel a lot? And I smiled and I was like, yes, I do. I travel almost every week. You must be asking me for a reason. And Meredith, she had a little tear in her eye. She goes, I want to know how you can be so calm. And I just explained to her, I was like, you know what? I'm very calm because I fully understand. And more importantly for me, I fully accept the fact I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I can't do anything about this. The aircraft is not here. There are no cars available. The trains aren't an option. And I said, what good is it doing anybody? And I pointed out to them, look at everybody up by the ticket agents, screaming and hollering and yelling, and everybody's yelling at each other. Where is it getting them? And you could see the light bulb going on for her. She was like, nowhere. It's not doing anybody any good. I was like, that's right. So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to read my book, and when the plane comes in, we'll get to Newark whenever we get to Newark.
Well, what you're talking about is learning to accept reality instead of fighting against it,
That's it.
which we can do and waste so much energy. I love that you made the point about what good does it do to
Right.
expend all this negative energy and being hostile to other people who can't do anything about it.
Right.
And I just think there are so many areas that this applies to in leadership. If somebody
Yes.
doesn't complete something on time or disappoints us in some way, or some unexpected thing happens, a big sale falls through, or, a project, some key person leaves a team. There's so many things that we don't have control over.
Right.
And so when you think about, say, a tip or an idea that you might share to help other people who tend to be a bit more reactive,
Yeah.
let's say, whether it's internally, getting upset with them themselves or externally with others. You mentioned the pause, reflect, decide. Is there
Yes.
anything else that can help them develop this pattern of quicker, in a more quick way, getting to acceptance?
I'm not, I don't know if I have any other tips relative to accepting. The one big thing though, Meredith, for me, and the recommendation again that I make all the time, I'm not able to pause and reflect every single time. I make mistakes. There are times I will react emotionally when I don't mean to. And the key point is when that happens, as quickly as possible, I apologize.
Mhm.
I said, Meredith, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. That was wrong. I was upset. I hope things will be okay with me. I really, really am sorry. And again, for me, it ties back to the psychological safety. It ties back to human. It ties back to humble enough to realize I was wrong. And I mean that when someone apologizes to me, it's just like, wow, okay. And I mean, again, it's kind of a long story, and I won't get into the whole thing. I had a VP of HR do me wrong. Is just how I'll phrase it. This was a while back. It was a small pharmaceutical company down in South Jersey. We were supposed to do some work together. We had agreed to it. We hadn't signed the contract yet, granted. Oh, everything's in place, Ron. It's going to be great. And then they went crickets and it went completely silent. Everything fell apart and he did me wrong. I don't need to get into the details. My point, he left the organization, joined another one. And I actually threw Elaine.
You what?
Through Elaine. I was talking to Elaine about it. And I was
Ah,
like, Elaine, should I reach out to him? Because he and I worked together for a long time. Yeah, go ahead. Just generically see what he says. He said, you know what, Ron? Let's get on a call. Let's get on a Teams call. Okay, we do. First thing he said to me on the call, I owe you an enormous apology. I am so sorry for the way things went. It was bad on my part. I didn't handle it well, just and so forth. And I stopped him after about a minute. And I was like, Anthony, stop. Stop right there. You don't need to say another word. It's forgotten. It's in the past. Everything's fine. And we are working together again today.
mhm. Well, I think that ties back to sometimes we take personally when we don't hear back from someone, we think, what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with them for not wanting to, interact with me. There's always stories that we can tell in our heads about the reasons why, when we really don't know. And I think that is another way that has helped me in dealing with situations that are beyond my control. And just recognizing there's always more to it than what we're seeing. And we can't know what's happening in the life of someone else, either in their job or in their personal life. It's almost always, when I do reconnect with the person and learn, there was a real important reason why
Yes.
I didn't hear from them, or, things turned out differently than I had expected. There's one other thing around control that I would love to just touch with you on before we wrap up, and that is around delegating, because even at some of the highest levels, some leaders have trouble letting go of areas that they know they do better than other people, or think they do better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you learned about leaders who have come to appreciate the importance of delegating and letting go of things they used to do?
I think I think part of it goes back to control, which we were just talking about, where it's just like, this is the outcome I want, this is the outcome, this is how it has to be, and this is how they have to do it. It's like, no, no. As long as, again, going back to the trust factor, how much trust do you have in the individuals to whom you're going to delegate? I hope it's high, and they better be very highly qualified if indeed you are going to delegate it, and realizing they may not get to the exact same point that I do, or go down the exact same path. That's okay. That's okay. The key point is, for me at least, again, going back to expectations, or, Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I need. This is what I need. It doesn't matter to me how you get there. This is what I need. And I think one of the other things that's been my experience, that leaders tend to hang on to things as well that they love to do. It's just that their passion, and that can be so problematic. Meredith, I'll tell you a story because it was so meaningful to me. In our last, again, in the last conversation we had when we had the technical trouble, I think I mentioned this. The most fun I have ever had in my entire career was when my colleague David and I were responsible for the Future Leaders program at Organon, the pharmaceutical company. Okay, I'll never forget. Joe, our boss, came to he and I. First of all, we were all working on it together. Joe was delivering some of it. David and I were delivering some of it. And we had some help from other people. Blah blah blah. Fine. Joe came to us one day and said, "Hey, I need to see the two of you tomorrow at 10 o'clock." Anything to think about, Joe? No, just show up in my office. So we did. Gentlemen, you know that before you came on board, I was here by myself. I designed, developed, and I was doing the Future Leaders program all by myself. It's gotten kind of old. It's gotten kind of tired. It's time to revise it. And he was emotional. Gentlemen, it's yours. It's yours. The Future Leaders program is now in your hands. I'm handing it off to you. And this again, setting the expectations. We're going to increase it to 3 weeks. This is what I want to see in it. Here are some additional content. What I would like you to do, guys, come up with an outline, come back to me in a week. We'll talk about it. The program is yours. And he ended with, guys, do me a favor. Make me proud. And my point is simply, that was so hard for him to let go of. And I admire him to this day for doing that, because that was his baby and he let it go. And that was not easy.
Such a powerful story. And setting that positive belief and trust in you that you would be able to do it. He wouldn't have said, make me proud, if he wasn't confident that you could do that. So to me, that's such another aspect of effective leadership is letting the other person know, I believe in you. I believe you're able to do this.
Yes.
Instead of having somebody be on edge about, what am I going to do wrong? What are they going to catch that I didn't do? And instead framing it so positively. I love that. Ron, we could talk, I know, another hour. It's so fun listening to your stories. I know my listeners have benefited so much from your stories and your insights. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wealth of experiences and wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Meredith, truly, truly, it has been my pleasure. It's just a joy to talk with you. We could go another hour easily.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ron, and we will be staying in touch.
Good, good.
Thanks for tuning in to my podcast. Now head over to growstrongleaders.com and check out our 2 books, Connect with Your Team and Peer Coaching Made Simple. While you're there, download the free Facilitator Guide to find out how to implement our unique peer coaching system. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.